I have always been here.
Greetings, everyone. It is the Ambassador, and welcome to the Ambassadorial Wing and another installment in my Ambassadorial editorial series. And today, we're going to be dipping back into the DC universe, and in particular, the movie Man of Steel. And for those of you who do follow the channel, you know that I did recently do a watch party for Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. And it had been quite a while since I had watched the film, but there was quite a bit in there that I really didn't catch the first time around. And I wanted to do a follow-up video discussing one topic in particular, one that I very much resonated with. And obviously, as the thumbnail said, this will be about Clark and Kal-El, an adoptee's story. And for those of you who are a little bit familiar with my background, for those of you who aren't, I'll give you the short version. When I was 31, I found out that I was adopted, and it had a huge impact upon my life. And looking at Clark's, Kal-El's story, I see a lot of similarities to a certain degree with what he went through throughout his childhood and his teenage years into his adulthood. And there was a lot there that I very much resonated with. So I wanted to take a little time and really dig into the perspective of Clark or Kal-El as an adoptee. And to begin, I think one of the fascinating things about a character like Superman, particularly with the newer version that we've had over the last several years, particularly with what Zack Snyder brought us in Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman, is we very much get the idea that Clark or Kal-El, well, let's specifically stick to Clark. Here's a man, who grew up in a fairly normal home, in a loving, caring environment with two parents who loved him immensely, Jonathan and Martha Kent. And in particular, what we see in Man of Steel is him trying to come to grips with these abilities that he has. And he doesn't understand why he has these abilities. He doesn't understand why he's different from everyone else around him. And he feels very much alone because of it. And even though he has a family that cares for him deeply, he still feels like he's out of place in the world. And speaking as an adoptee myself, I could understand where he's coming from. And I'll give you all a little bit of the background on me discovering that I was adopted. Much like Clark, I found out much later in life that I had been adopted. I was 31 years old at the time when the revelation of my adoption came to light, and it very much threw me into a very dark and very depressing period in my life. And I was trying to find where I fit in the world, who I was as a person. And I think the fascinating thing that Zack Snyder does in Man of Steel is we very much get that same impression from Clark, because we see him at various stages throughout his life, particularly when he's in elementary school, and then again a little bit later when he's older and like maybe in high school or whatever the case may be, and then eventually when he's out in the world, he's trying to make his way in the world, doing all sorts of various odd jobs. I mean, he's working on a fishing boat, he works in a bar, and so on. And throughout his journey, he he has these abilities, he has these powers, and he, to a degree, understands that he is different from everyone else. Because at one point during Man of Steel, Jonathan shows him the ship that brought him to Earth from Krypton. And there's a similar moment for me in my own life, very much like Clark's. My discovery of my adoption was at a very pivotal moment in my life. And to see Clark trying to wrestle with this massive revelation when he comes, not just when Jonathan shows him the ship that brought him to Earth, but when he finally discovers the Kryptonian scout ship in the Arctic. And he goes into the ship and he comes across the holographic program of his father, Jor-El. And Jor-El speaks to Clark, or as he calls him, Kal-El. And he's like, you are the last son of Krypton. Your mother and I had you, put you into the ship and sent you here with the hopes that you would survive and you would flourish and you would be a beacon of hope for the people of Earth. Because as Jor-El tells Kal-El, or Clark, the crest of the House of El is a symbol of hope. But for me at least, looking at what Clark has gone through in this movie, very much, as I mentioned, it very much resonates with me. Because he's got these abilities, he's got these powers, and now he has these two identities. All his life, he was raised to believe he was Clark Kent, that his parents were Jonathan and Martha Kent. And then everything just gets turned upside down for him. And I had a similar revelation, or a similar experience, when I discovered the fact that I was adopted. Because at first I couldn't grasp it. It almost felt unreal to me. And after a while, all I felt inside was bitterness and anger. And it was because I felt like I had been robbed of something, because I had been kind of corralled and enclosed in this life that I now felt was a lie. And I think one of the moments in particular that really resonated with me in Man of Steel was when it's right after Clark saves that busload of students, his fellow students, when he pushes the bus up out of the river. And he's sitting there on the farm with Jonathan. And Clark is like, what was I supposed to do? Let my friends, let those kids just drown? And I know a lot of people have a problem with this scene, the way Jonathan reacts. But I think Jonathan's reaction is very real, and I'll kind of go into it a little bit further with my own personal experience. Jonathan is trying to raise this young man who he has regarded and treated as his son the majority of his life. And he's like, I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. I don't know what to tell you in regards of how you should have reacted in this situation. And he says, maybe you should have just let him drown, but obviously you didn't because of the way me and your mother have raised you. And the thing for me, in terms of my own perspective on this, when I finally sat down with both of my parents, both my mothers, because, well, as most of you know, my father, my adoptive father, died when I was 7, and my biological father had died long before I found out I was even adopted. And I asked both of my mothers, I was like, why didn't you tell me? And they said to me, we were afraid. We didn't know what to do per se, particularly after your one father had died. We didn't know what to do. And I think for Clark, finally finding that Kryptonian scout ship and discovering his true identity, his true name, and finally starting to find a place in this world that he has been a part of for so long, but has felt alien towards. Very much is how I felt when I discovered who I was, discovered the truth of my parentage. And I think the amazing thing about a movie like Man of Steel is the fact that with a character like Superman, like Clark Kent, like Kal-El, a being that has immense, unimaginable power, and yet at the core of him, he is a man trying to find his place in the world, trying to find that sense of belonging and that connection that we all seek to find in our own lives. And I think that's one of the truly amazing things that Zack Snyder did with this film. And another scene that I particularly resonated with was when Clark went to the church and he talked with the priests there. And we can infer that this was a Catholic church, and by the attire of the priest, the pastor, it was a priest. Which reasons to me that Clark was brought up in potentially a Catholic home, which is neither here nor there in a manner of speaking. But speaking as a person of faith, for those of you who know, I am a very devout Christian, have been the majority of my life. Him going to the priest and asking, what in the world should I do? But trying to phrase it in a way where he doesn't give away his true identity to the priest. I think for me that was a very genuine and a very real and a very authentic moment for Clark. Because for me, it was the fact that I was reared in a Christian home. And it was the fact that I turned to people of faith and asked them, I have discovered this huge thing about my life and I don't know what to do with it. And they said, we can't offer you any clear answers, but we can at least offer you a place where you might be able to find some healing and some peace and maybe have an opportunity to reconcile with your family, because I became estranged from my family. And ultimately we were, thankfully. And that was another great part of of Clark's journey within Man of Steel, was that he was able to reconcile the two sides of himself to a certain degree, at least, and realize that yes, he is the last son of Krypton, but he is also the son of Jonathan and Martha Kent. And I think, and I know a lot of people have talked about this particular scene, at the end, when Zod is threatening to kill that family there in the train station, and Clark has to snap his neck. Not only has Clark taken a life, which I think bears on him heavily, just as a human being, as raised as a human being, but it also bears on his soul very heavily also as a Kryptonian. He has essentially killed the last link that he's aware of to his Kryptonian heritage. And for me, now I've never had to take a life. Thankfully and gratefully, I've never had to take a life. But I can, to a degree, understand that pain and that heartache, because I felt like I had had a huge chunk of me ripped out when that revelation that I had been adopted and it had been kept from me all those years, 31 years it had been kept from me. I could, to a degree, understand the pain that Kal-El was going through. And I think that's honestly one of the great things about a character like Superman, like Clark Kent, like Kal-El, the last son of Krypton. And I will be very interested to see the journey that he goes on in Zack Snyder's Justice League, which comes out just in a few days. And I sincerely hope that the response to this movie is so emphatic that we get to see not just the rest of the Justice League's journey, but we get to see Clark's, Kal-El's journey completed as well. So, anyways, folks, that's going to be the video. As always, make sure you comment down below. Let me know what you thought about anything I had to bring up in this video. And as always, if you come across this video and you enjoyed it and you are not a part of the Ambassadorial Wing, hit that like, hit that share, and hit that subscribe. And until next time, this is the Ambassador, signing off.